I was driving through a really nice suburb the other day. Big walls, electric fences, security cameras, the whole nine yards.
hmm
And it hit me. In South Africa, we spend a literal fortune keeping bad guys out of our physical space.
It's practically a national pastime. We are absolutely obsessed with the perimeter.
Exactly. But here's the thought that kept nagging at me. What if the person coming to take your house, what if they don't need to jump the fence?
Okay.
What if they just walk right through the front door with a piece of paper and a sheriff?
That is a terrifying thought. But you're right. We build these castles, our homes, our businesses, our savings. We spend 30, maybe 40 years laying every single brick.
Right.
But the source material we're digging into today suggests that most of us, we make one fatal mistake
We leave the drawbridge down,
and completely unattended.
and that's what we're talking about today. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are looking at how to pull that drawbridge up. We're exploring this concept of the asset protection fortress.
It sounds dramatic, doesn't it? The fortress.
It does. But the insights we're pulling from today, specifically from Limke Sturman, who's a trust consultant and asset protection specialist, they're all strictly practical.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be clear up front, because I know what everyone thinks when they hear trusts.
Yep, here it comes.
We aren't talking about tax evasion. We're not talking about hiding money in the Cayman Islands like some movie villain.
No, absolutely not. That's the Hollywood version. The reality Limke Sturman deals with is it's much more grounded. It's about survival.
Survive.
It's about making sure that if, or maybe when, life throws a curveball, a lawsuit, a bad business deal, or just the bureaucracy of death, your legacy doesn't get completely wiped out.
So today we've got three specific pillars to look at: the home, the business, and one that, I'll be honest, it scared me a little because I just hadn't considered it, the digital legacy.
Oh, the digital legacy is the one everyone forgets. It is the silent wealth killer of the modern age.
But before we get there, we have to start with the basics. Why is just owning stuff in my own name such a bad idea? I mean, that's the dream, right? I own my house.
It is the dream.
I worked hard for it. My name's on the title deed.
It is the dream until things go wrong. In the legal world, there's a term for this: creditor vulnerability. Think of your name as a basket.
Right.
You put your house, your car, your savings all into that one basket. But if you're economically active, you're also putting your risks, your business surety, your liability, any potential lawsuits into the exact same basket.
So I dropped the basket.
Everything shatters. Not just the risky stuff, the safe stuff too.
Wow.
Lumka breaks this down with a really painful case study in her Trust for Life guide, the Richardson family.
I read that one. Andrew Richardson, successful guy, construction company owner, seemed to be doing everything right.
Totally. He and his wife, Margaret, they owned a beautiful home valued around 6 million rand, lived there for 15 years. But construction, it's volatile.
Yep.
One major project went sideways. Structural issues, delays, penalties. The claims, they just exceeded his business insurance.
And I'm guessing he had signed personal guarantees for the business.
That's the killer. The creditors looked right past the company and went straight for Andrew. They got a judgment against him personally.
And because the house was in his name,
It was an asset. It was fair game to satisfy the debt. They lost the house.
15 years of mortgage payments and memories. Just gone. To pay for a business mistake, that feels incredibly harsh.
It is harsh, but it's the law. Now, here's the thing. Had that home been in a properly structured trust, the outcome would have been completely different.
I mean, if I'm the beneficiary of the trust, don't I still technically own it? Wouldn't creditors just say, okay, fine, give us your trust assets?
No, and that's the legal magic trick, really. In a discretionary trust, the trust owns the property. You, as the beneficiary, you only have a hope of benefiting. You don't have a fixed right to the bricks and mortar.
So creditors can't touch it.
They can't. If a creditor comes for you, they can't take the house because you don't actually own it. The trust does.
So it effectively disconnects the family's safety from the breadwinner's risk.
Exactly. It's a firewall. But, there's another angle to this that isn't even about going broke. It's about dying.
The estate administration nightmare. This is the part that just feels like pure, painful bureaucracy.
It is, but it has very real-world consequences. When you die, your assets are frozen. If your house is in your name, it goes into your deceased estate.
And in South Africa, winding that up takes a long time.
A very long time. 12 to 18 months is standard, and that's if you're lucky.
Wow.
And during that whole time, the house is just in limbo. The widow or widower, they often can't sell it, can't refinance it, sometimes can't even authorize major repairs without the executor signing off.
So you're basically a squatter in your own life for nearly 2 years.
That's a good way to put it. Now, compare that to the Campbell family example from the notes. Night and day difference. Elizabeth Campbell held her home in a trust. When she passed away, the trust didn't die. It just continued.
No freezing of assets.
None. No executor interference with the property. Her husband and kids just kept living there. The owner, the trust, it never died.
That sounds great, but I have to play devil's advocate here. Lumka is very transparent about the costs.
Yeah.
Moving a house into a trust, it isn't free.
No, it's definitely not free.
In fact, it sounds pretty expensive.
It is. If you move an existing home into a trust, you trigger transfer duty. On, say, an 8 million rand home, you're looking at a bill of roughly our 480,000.
Oof, that is a massive check to write. I can hear listeners right now saying, why on earth would I pay R500,000 just to move my house into a different legal bucket?
It's a valid pushback. I mean, our 480,000 is a lot of money, but you have to run the numbers on the alternative. First, think about estate duty.
The death tax.
Exactly. When you die, the government takes 20% of your estate's value above a certain threshold. If your house stays in your name, its value keeps growing, and that tax bill just keeps growing with it.
But inside the trust.
The growth happens outside your personal estate, so that our 480,000 you pay now could save your heirs millions in estate duty down the line.
Plus the executor fees.
Exactly. Executors charge a percentage, usually 3.5% plus VAT of the gross assets. If your house is in a trust, the executor can't charge a fee on it.
So financially, over the long term, it could actually save you money.
Often, yes. It breaks even or saves money. But more importantly, what's the price of peace of mind? Knowing your spouse won't be locked in administrative hell for 2 years.
That emotional security, that's the fortress part.
Mm-hmm.
It's an investment in stability, not just a line item cost. Okay, let's move to the second pillar. Because if the home is the sanctuary, the business is the engine.
And this is where Limca points out a structural flaw that I think 90% of entrepreneurs are guilty of.
He calls it mixed liability.
Which is basically keeping your golden eggs in the same basket as the rocks that might crush them.
It's a very colorful way to put it.
But it's accurate. Business owners often have one company. That company signs the contracts, it takes the risks, it hires the staff.
Right.
But they also keep their valuable assets, the cash reserves, intellectual property, heavy machinery, inside that exact same company.
So if a client sues or the market crashes,
the assets sink with the ship. Lumca's fortress strategy is all about a two-bucket system.
Okay, walk us through that.
Simple. You have a risk bucket and a wealth bucket. The risk bucket is your operating company. It does the work. It takes the heat.
And the wealth bucket.
That's the trust. The trust owns the valuable assets, the equipment, the IP, the cash, and then it leases them to the operating company.
So if the risk bucket springs a leak,
the wealth bucket stays dry. The operating company might go under, but your capital is safe in the trust, ready for you to start over.
That makes perfect sense for protection. But what about the human element? We saw that case study, the Crawford family. This is that classic succession chaos.
Oh, this is huge. The founder's trap. If you own 100% of your business shares personally and you die, those shares go to your estate. So who runs the business on Monday morning?
The executor.
Technically, yes. But does your executor, who is probably a lawyer or an accountant, know how to run a manufacturing plant? Or a digital marketing agency?
Probably not.
No. They'll make conservative decisions to protect the estate's value, which usually means freezing operations. Meanwhile, competitors are circling, staff get nervous, clients start to leave.
And the business value just plummets.
But in the trust model, the shares are owned by the trust. The trust doesn't die. So the remaining trustees, which could include your spouse and a professional, they just appoint a new director. Business continuity is seamless.
The Crawford case also touched on something I found really fascinating.
Yeah.
This idea of fair but not equal. This feels like it solves so many family fights.
It really does. So in the Crawford case, you had a father, Richard. He has a son, Michael, who runs the business. He has a daughter, Sarah, who is a doctor, who wants nothing to do with it, and a second wife, Elizabeth, who needs financial security.
If you leave them the business equally in a will, you are just creating a war.
A total war. If you split it 3 ways, Michael is doing all the work for a third of the profit, and Sarah and Elizabeth are interfering in decisions they don't understand because they're worried about their dividends.
So how does the trust fix that?
A will forces you to slice the pie into these fixed, rigid pieces. A trust offers flexibility. The trustees can decide. Michael gets business control and a market-related salary. Sarah gets distributions from other investments in the trust, and Elizabeth gets a guaranteed monthly income.
So everyone gets what they need, even if the RAND value isn't identical.
Exactly. It treats the family wealth as a dynamic ecosystem, not just a dead pile of cash to be split up.
That's a beautiful way to phrase it. Okay, let's pivot to the third pillar, the one that feels like a sci-fi problem but is actually a today problem, the digital legacy.
This is the new frontier of asset loss. Seriously.
And we aren't just talking about, Bitcoin bros, right?
No, not at all, though that's the big headline. We're talking about business cloud systems, domain names, social media accounts with monetized followers, and, yes, crypto.
The core problem Lemke identifies here is the access crisis.
Right. Think about a will. A will is a public document. Once it's lodged, anyone can go and read it. You cannot put your passwords or your crypto recovery phrases in a will.
And even if you could, by the time the will is read, it could be too late.
Way too late. The story of William Thompson in the source material was just heartbreaking. He had a lot of Bitcoin on a hardware wallet, a little physical device.
Secure.
Too secure. He died. The family found the device. They knew there was money there, maybe hundreds of thousands of rands worth. But they never found the recovery phrase.
So the money's just sitting there.
Visible on the blockchain, but mathematically inaccessible. Forever. It's what we call digital waste.
Wow. But for a business owner, this is even more immediate. If I'm the only admin on my accounting software or the domain registrar...
And you have a stroke. No one can run payroll. No one can send invoices.
Yeah.
If the domain renewal notice goes to your locked email, the website just goes dark. Your brand vanishes into the digital ether.
So how does a trust solve a password problem? I mean, you can't give it trust a brain to remember them.
No, but you can give it governance. Lemke advises that the trust manages a digital inventory. And this isn't some sticky note under your keyboard. It's a secure, encrypted list of assets and access protocols, and it's managed by the trustees.
And because the trustees have legal standing?
They can act immediately. They don't need to wait for a letter of executorship from the master of the high court. They can step in, make sure the domain is paid, the payroll runs, and the crypto is secured.
It brings all those digital assets out of the shadows and into a proper legal structure. Okay, so we've covered the home, the business, and the digital. I imagine there are listeners thinking, I'm sold. I get it. I'm going to go online, download a trust deed template, set this thing up this weekend.
And that brings us to maybe the most critical warning in the material. Do not DIY this.
Why not? If I have the template,
Yeah.
why do I need a consultant?
Because of something called the sham trust doctrine. In South Africa, the courts are becoming very, very aggressive about this. If you set up a trust, but you treat it like your personal piggy bank, if you make all the decisions alone, if there are no meetings, no resolutions, the court will look at it and say, this isn't a trust, this is just your alter ego.
And they pierce the veil.
And they take the assets, the protection just dissolves instantly. You have to prove that the trust is a separate legal person.
This is where the independent trustee comes in, right?
Yes. It is actually a legal requirement for family trusts in South Africa to have at least one independent trustee, someone not related to you and not a beneficiary. This is one of the key roles Lemke Sturman plays for her clients.
So she's not just a consultant giving advice. She's an active participant in the fortress's defense.
Correct. By having a professional like her on the board of trustees, you are signaling to SARS and to the courts that this is a legitimate structure. She handles the compliance, the annual resolutions, the fortress reviews.
It's like having a bodyguard who also does all the paperwork.
That's a great analogy. You need someone to make sure you don't accidentally break your own fortress from the inside.
Now, we have to talk about objections. We mentioned the cost of moving the house. But there's also the setup cost. Lemke services aren't free.
No, a proper setup can range from R25,000 to R50,000, depending on complexity.
That's not pocket change.
It isn't. But again, you have to compare that to the cost of losing an R6 million home, or the cost of your business collapsing because no one has the passwords. It's insurance.
Right.
You pay for car insurance hoping you never crash. This is similar, but the crash, death is guaranteed eventually.
The other big objection is control. People say, I don't want to lose control of my own assets.
And Lemke's response to this is brilliant. She says, you don't lose control, you change how you control it. You switch from being an owner to being a managing trustee.
You still drive the car, you just don't hold the title deed.
Exactly. And because you don't hold the title deed, if you crash, they can't take the house you sleep in.
That's the key takeaway. But there is a timing issue here too, isn't there?
The most dangerous objection of all, we'll do it later.
Hmm.
You cannot transfer assets into a trust once you are already in financial trouble. That is called dissipation of assets, and it's illegal. The court will just reverse it.
So you can't buy fire insurance when the house is already burning.
You have to build the roof while the sun is shining.
You've covered a lot of ground today. From protecting the family home from creditors and that probate nightmare,
To separating your business risk from your actual wealth.
and making sure your digital legacy doesn't just turn into digital waste.
The common thread through all of it is proactivity. A trust isn't some dusty legal document. It's a living fortress. But it only works if it's built correctly and maintained by professionals.
So if this conversation has made you realize your drawbridge might be a little bit down, you should probably look into Lemke Storman's work. Her website is www.lemkestorman.com.
Yeah, she has a waitlist for her Shield Your Business Empire program, and there are other resources on there, including a link to this deep dive, actually. It's definitely worth a look if you want to move from being exposed to being protected.
It seems like a smart move for anyone building something real in this country. Before we go, we always like to leave you with a provocative thought, something to chew on.
Here's mine for today. We often measure our wealth by net asset value, what you own minus what you owe. But maybe the real metric should be accessible value.
Accessible value.
If you were in a coma tomorrow, how much of your wealth could your family actually access to pay the mortgage? If the answer is 0, are you actually wealthy? Or are you just the gatekeeper to a castle they can't enter?
That is a chilling question, but a necessary one. Go lift that drawbridge, everyone. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
Stay safe.